Am I the a-hole for telling my dad's ex that she could have been my mom if she didn't cheat on my dad? Plus, update. Original post. Let me describe my family a bit. I am the youngest of 4 children, by far the youngest. I have 2 older brothers and 1 older sister. My mom is my dad's second wife. From his first wife, I have an older half-sister, who is 3 years older than my oldest full sibling. His first wife, his childhood friend, cheated on him way before. And after my dad made sure my half-sister was his, he divorced her. He met my mom, and a few years later they tied the knot, and the rest is history. My half-sister has always been welcome in our house. She gets along really well with all of us and even calls my mom auntie. Her mom, though, has always been a bit of a harpies. She hates my mom for many reasons outside of she stole my man. My mom is a retired fitness model and current Pilates instructor, so she looks really good for her age while she's more average and plump. So she would always make snarky remarks like, "Oh, did you gain weight?" or "Are you pregnant again?" Even though my mom never stopped taking care of herself. With me, though, she dotes on me and calls me the son she never had. With my older siblings, she mostly just ignores them. So my half-sister is getting married, and my dad and his ex agreed to split the cost of the wedding 50-50. My dad doesn't care about planning for the wedding, so he left it all to the ex and the bride. During one of our meet-and-greet dinners, my half-sister revealed that she also invited my dad's estranged brother and parents. I can still remember my dad shooting a glare of pure anger at her. I asked my mom later why he reacted like that. I never met my uncle or grandparents on my dad's side, but from how my mom spoke, my dad's ex cheated on him with his brother, and his parents knew it for years before confessing. So my half-sister could really have been my aunt or something if the sperm chase went wrong. My dad's ex was together with my dad's brother for a while after she and my dad divorced, but split soon after. And my dad refused to forgive his family for fooling him like that, and he went no contact with them for 25 years. So back to the dinner, my dad asked in a very stern yet quiet voice why she would, and my half-sister wanted to make her wedding more meaningful by also having a family reunion. And her mother supported her. She told my dad to bury the hatchet, at least for her daughter. My dad said she didn't have any right to tell him how to act. On her way out, my dad's ex and I bumped into each other, and she commented to me how she hoped that I wouldn't have a chip on my shoulder like my dad does. If not for that, they could still be one whole, happy family. I didn't like her tone and reminded her that she was the one who cheated and broke the family. And I told her that she could have been my mom. The last part made her cry like crazy as she ran out of the house. My dad asked me what happened, and I told him, and he just grunted. Did I go too far? Now for the updates. Update 1. Wow. I didn't expect so much response for my first ever post on Reddit. Thank you so much for all your comments. I am glad that at least I wasn't being cruel. My dad's ex just bawled so much and suddenly that I thought I did something awful, and I was worried. As of now, I don't really know what my dad is going to do. I know that my mom and dad are talking about it, but he really seems conflicted. I thought about asking him, but my oldest brother told me not to. He said that I had nothing to do with it, so I shouldn't bother him. But my full siblings and I just talked to my half-sibling about what she had done in our WhatsApp chat tonight. First, my full sister tore my half-sister a new one, calling all sorts of names before my brother told her to stop or leave the chat. Then he asked her why she did what she did. Turns out that her idea of including a family reunion in her wedding was an idea from our paternal grandparents and her mom. Unlike myself and my full siblings, my half-sister regularly visited her grandparents and talked to them a lot about us. My grandparents apparently wanted to see us really bad, and her mom popped the idea. Then my second oldest brother said that while it was her wedding and she could invite whom she liked, she didn't take our father's feelings into account. There was a reason that he went no contact with them for all these years, and it wasn't up to her to try to fix burnt bridges. My half-sister then asked if he was going to pull money out of the wedding, and my sister sent a brutal message. Is that the most important thing right now, you? I added that our father hasn't told us anything. Then my half-sister said that she shouldn't have even done this to begin with, and my sister commented, "You think?" She wondered if she could unsend wedding invitations to her grandparents and uncle, but then her mom might pull her money. I sent a chat to my full siblings only chat if Dad could fund the whole wedding if that meant not inviting his brother and parents. My oldest brother told me to can it and don't bother Dad. She also asked how our dad has been, and I said that he is very conflicted and talking only to my mom about it. I then asked if her mom was okay since I made her cry. She said that her mom calmed down when they returned home. Apparently, they got into an argument when she called my dad a stubborn sob. To be honest, I think she is in a very tight spot. She can either piss off our dad or her mom. I don't know what my dad is going to do, and my oldest brother already reminded me twice that this wasn't my business. I honestly think Dad would be up for paying for the entire wedding if his estranged family didn't come. Of course, it's his money, though. Or maybe he is just so angry that he might pull out altogether. Edit. I didn't post the entire conversation that my full siblings and I had with my half-sister. I pulled only the relevant parts. What I was thinking when I thought my dad could pay for the entire wedding was, does Dad hate his family to the point where he would pay for everything just for them not to be there? I wasn't actually suggesting he pay for everything. That's stupid. Looks like a lot of you are wondering if my half-sister knew what happened between my dad and his family. She knows that they hurt him badly, and he's never forgiven them. But not the specifics of how they had hurt him. She knew the cheating part, but not the family lied to him for years part. Apparently, that's not something her mom or my dad's family discussed with her. Sister's post. Hello. So I am the half-sister to the plain roof IDET 162, who made the posts regard me. My brother told me about his posts on Reddit about me a few days back. He suggested that I do the same here. First of all, I love my baby brother more than any other member of my family since I've helped take care of him since he was born. Second, I am very grateful for my father. He never mistreated me or made me feel lesser than his other children, so I did not mean to betray him in any way. My mother had told me about her affair when I was in middle school, so I understood early on why they weren't together. I don't think I was ever angry at her since I was always welcome to see him and his family at any time I wanted. But I wasn't aware until recently that the affair was related to my uncle. I asked my grandmother many times why my father would never visit them, and she would say it was because he was too busy with work or his kids. I asked my father one time, and he just said the same thing. I showed him their socials before, and he merely brushed over them. But I remember he never talked about them before, at least in front of me. Skip forward to recently. While I was coming up with the wedding invitation, I remember my grandparents and my mother asking if they could be invited. And I said, not knowing what had really happened, said of course. And then the dinner happened, like my baby brother described in his first post. After the dinner, my father was so cold to me that I confronted him as to what was the huge issue. My father told me that I should have known better than to invite them to a wedding that he was paying for. And I asked him what the heck was the problem. My father then asked if I knew what they did, and I just replied that he never visited them. Then I heard from Auntie that my mother had an affair with my uncle way before they married, and their parents knew and hid the secret. I swear to God that I didn't know about this. I then asked why he never told me this, and my father answered that he already did the worst he could do, which was to never talk or see them ever again. He had no intention of souring my relationship with his estranged family. I then asked my father what I should do, and he just hugged me hard, and he said it was my choice. I returned the hug and went out with my mom, and she was crying when she was walking out. I confronted my mom immediately when we got home. My mother went a tirade about how my father was one who chose divorce and to break up his family, so I left. Now I am considering canceling their wedding invites, but I don't know how to do the best way. To be honest, I don't want them at my wedding anymore. If they want to celebrate it, they can do it at a different time. I don't know if I should write a letter to them. I don't want to push aside any members of my family. Final update. So, my half-sister came over Sunday and talked to my dad. Basically, she made the decision to have the wedding without her extended family and pay for half of the wedding by herself and her fiancé. She sort of figured that her mom would pull her money out for making that decision. Dad seems to be much happier about it. I saw her crying a lot and my dad hugging her. Not sure what happened exactly, but I am guessing she apologized and he accepted it. She stayed with us during the weekend and her mom came by. Mom and Dad wouldn't let her in, so my half-sister and her mother talked outside for a bit. I guess it started off well, but then I heard shouting from outside. When I came downstairs, both of them were screaming at each other. My dad calmly walked out and told my half-sister to go in. He talked to her calmly while she went back and forth from screaming and crying. Then a car came by and a man stepped out. He walked towards my dad and held out his hand, but Dad didn't take it. He sort of looked like my dad, but shorter and with longer hair, so I guess that was my uncle. He tried to talk to my dad, but my dad pretty much ignored him. I went to my brothers and told them what was happening, and they immediately walked down and outside. They told me to stay inside, so I continued to stare out the window. My brothers just stood by the balcony. The new man said hi to them, but they didn't respond. Anyway, my dad spoke a bit with his ex-wife for a while and came back inside with my brothers. His ex-wife was glaring at my dad for a bit before going back to her car with the guy. When my brothers sat down, I asked if that was my uncle, and the oldest one nodded. Apparently, my two older brothers met my uncle purely by accident before. Things were smooth that night. My half-sister's fiancé came back, and we all had a nice dinner. My mom and my sisters went away to plan the wedding since her mother is not joining in anymore. My brothers, my dad, me, and the fiancé just talked about stuff until we heard lots of honking right outside. We went to check it out, and my uncle was back with my dad's ex-wife. My dad told my mom to call the cops while he tried to handle the situation. My brothers, my dad, and my half-sister's fiancé went out. There was some yelling and screaming, but then the cops came, and they went away. So, for the time being, my half-sister will be staying with us. I thought all was done until I got a text from my dad's ex after school yesterday. She asked me if I could help her with something. I just blocked her number, but then she texted me on a new number. I'm pretty sure my parents and brothers would say block her again, but there's nothing stopping her from using new phone numbers to bug me. Not sure what I can help her with anyway. Story 2. Updated. I just went on a date with a guy who tried to rob me. Original post? I can't possibly tell anyone I know about this story, so here it goes. 2 years ago, I returned home from my father's funeral. As soon as I opened the door to my apartment, a guy holding a crowbar came out from my kitchen holding my TV. I live in the city, so robberies are common. The guy began shouting at me, and he clumsily dropped my TV and began holding the crowbar like it was a baseball bat. I was so stunned at what was happening that I didn't move. The guy screamed at me to empty my pockets. From the stress of the last few days with my father passing away, I simply started crying. Not out of fear at what was happening, but because this was literally the worst time of my life. The worst moment. The worst minute and second. While crying hysterically, I gave the guy my wallet. I just sat on my floor and hugged my knees and told him, through my tears, to take whatever you want. He hesitated, looked down at me. He dropped my wallet and sat down beside me. Immediately, he began to comfort me. He began to apologize. He put my TV back on the table and told me it wasn't damaged. He told me that he lost his job and that his mom needed medicine that he couldn't afford and that they were homeless. He told me all of this while I just wailed. I cried for my father, who was lost. I cried for my future, for it was uncertain. And I cried because my home had been intruded on in the most violent way. For a good 10 minutes I sat on the floor with a guy who had every intent to rob me, telling me that it would be okay and that he was sorry. He begged me not to call the police. I just started screaming at him to get out. He ran away so fast that he left the crowbar. I threw it after him as he ran down the street. 2 days later, I came home from work and he was sitting in front of my door. I was so terrified that I pulled out my phone, but he had this look on his face of, I'm not sure how to describe it, remorse, regret. He told me that he told his mom what he did, and his mom made me some soup. He handed me this tiny bowl wrapped in tin foil. Again, I was stunned and overwhelmed and angry that I slapped the bowl out of his hands and it shattered on the floor. I told him to leave or I was calling the police. He left. I remember he looked upset. I left the soup and shattered bowl outside my door, almost as a warning for him to not come back. About 3 months after that, I got a note in my mail slot from the guy. He told me his mother had passed away and that he was no longer homeless and that he had a job. He wanted to repay me for breaking into my apartment. He wrote down his address and told me that I was welcome to break into his place if I wanted, but he didn't have much stuff. This all overwhelmed me. I threw away the letter, but I remembered his address. I remember walking by there one day, out of curiosity. It was a ratty apartment building across the city. He was walking up to his room and he saw me. He waved. I turned away and left. He ran after me, apologized again, told me that he never meant to do what he did. He showed me the program from his mother's funeral that he kept in his wallet. He wasn't lying. She was real. He was real. He was a real person. I don't know what it was, but I believed him. We slowly began to grow together as people. I can't describe it. After a year of maintaining communication and learning about who he was, he enrolled in a local community college and began taking courses to earn credits before applying to university. I helped him study for his history class a lot. He's great at math and science, though. I never invited him over to my apartment, however. No matter how much I got to know him, I was still afraid of him. And he knew that. He knew that I couldn't trust him. But tonight, we went out for coffee because he said he had an exam in his World Civ class. When I got there, he said he forgot his book. We just talked for a bit. We laughed. And then he told me he wanted to cook for me. On a whim, I decided to invite him to my apartment. After picking up some things from the grocery store, he came over. I was so nervous that I was shaking. He noticed, he squeezed my hand, and then he made dinner. It was amazing. We talked, we laughed, we sat in the floor and watched a movie on the TV he tried to steal. We made jokes about it. And then he told me that he missed his mom. I gave him a hug. Then he left. I don't know what I feel, but I do know that I can't give up on people anymore. Some people just have the shit end of life. Maybe things have a way of working themselves out. And I miss my dad, too. Edit, update. I am beside myself to log on this morning and see this at the top of this page. I have been a Redditor for a few years, but never thought this would happen. Also, to those of you who are messaging commenting to confirm the validity of this, I guess it never occurred to me when I wrote this that it sounded so ridiculous. It really does. I don't blame you for saying it's false, but it's real. He's real. I'm real. It all happened is happening currently. Thank you all who have messaged me and commented, and thank you to the 2 people that gave me gold. This is just insane to me. I'm so grateful, so very grateful. Edit 2. Sorry for neglecting this. Today has been insane with work and hosting a friend's bridal shower. I want to clarify a few things about this because I'm getting a lot of messages about a lot of different things. People are saying that I am being too trusting of him after what happened. You're right, I suppose. I mean, I live in the heart of one of the most dangerous cities. My friend was robbed just a few years ago and was actually physically injured as a result of it. So me trusting him did not constitute me giving him a hug after he broke in. It was much, much more than that. My dad died of a brain aneurysm in March 2013. He passed away peacefully in his sleep. The thing about my dad, though, was that he was the most generous, most kindest man in this world. I know people like to say that about their parents, but it's true about my dad. When I was 4, I remember him giving these guys a ride from prison. They were released after serving their sentence, but had to walk to get to where they were going. My dad picked them up, had them hop in the back of his pickup truck, and took them home. He put his life, and basically mine, at the hands of these people who could have hurt us. They didn't, thank God. My dad taught me to be selfless and understanding of the world and of people, and I loved him for that. But when I lost him, it shattered me and turned me into an entirely different person. After my dad died, I became severely depressed and angry. I was angry at everything. I had to take a leave from my job. I teach 2nd grade. All day I would lay in bed and think about how much I hated God or whatever higher power for taking my dad away. Nothing seemed worth it. After the guy, my friend, broke into my apartment, I hated him for a while. I hated my dad for making me so trusting because I didn't call the cops on the guy. I hated my dad for dying. I hated him for being so incredibly compassionate and better than me. I hated myself for being vulnerable. I just hated everything. The guy who tried to rob me is a person, and of course, I constantly ask myself when I'm with him, what happens if he tries to hurt me or rob me again? But the thing about him is that he knows I'm thinking this, and he constantly tries to reassure me. We have grown together as people, as I said. There's a whole 2 years that I didn't post in this recounting because it would be like a novel-length post. Do I like him? I don't think so. I don't think he likes me. I think we both understand, respect, and honor the other for our mutual struggles. We're proud of each other, and we're both guilty of things. Me for shutting out my friends, family, and students and becoming an awful person after I lost my dad, and him for going to incredible lengths to try and save his mother from experiencing incredible agony in her final moments. I intend to show him this post. I want him to know. He doesn't have a computer or internet, but I think he'll find this humorous. His story is not mine to tell. How his mother died is not my story to tell. What exactly drove him to pry open my front door with a crowbar is not for me to tell. What happened to his family is not for me to tell. But what is for me to tell is that he is a human. He is flawed. God, he's so flawed. But after knowing him and learning about his life, about his childhood, and the tiny little child who used to be so passionate about school, and learning as he was, as he told me, I know that he has his story. I have my story. You have yours. And although I think it is irrelevant, the thought of even dating after the last few years hasn't crossed my mind. Was I involved in relationships prior to my dad's passing? Yes, one was long-term and had a foreseeable end with an engagement, but things happen. Life happens. I'm meeting with him tomorrow at his work while he's on break to give him some old study materials that I have from a literature class I took in college. It's also normal, and I'm not afraid. My dad was never afraid, so I shouldn't have to be. I choose not to be. Update 1. Hey! So I posted a couple of days ago about how I went on a date with this guy who tried to rob me. This is just a quick follow-up. Nothing major. Last night I showed him the post and some of the comments from you guys. He was a little apprehensive about this place and the fact that I had shared this with the entire world. But the comments really made him so happy. He wanted me to thank you all, and I tried to get him to make a post of his own, but he thinks it's too weird. Plus, he considers himself a bad speller. I just wanted to update everyone with this little unimportant tidbit. My dad's birthday is in a few weeks. I always have to prepare myself for it year-round, really. But this year is different, because I know I have people to support me. Especially a really close new friend who came, well, I'd like to say out of nowhere. But he really just came out of my kitchen holding a crowbar. One more thing, when I showed him the post, he looked up at me and went, "Wait, it was a date?" And I got so embarrassed. Then he laughed and told me that he was relieved because he thought it was a date. We haven't talked about anything else along the lines of dating in the future. I just wanted to extend my gratitude, my thanks, and my love, as well as his, to you all. Thank you. Thank you. Update 2. I've been trying to write this for the past 3 months, but I always kept getting busy. I truly don't know what to say because so much has happened in the 6 months since I wrote all this down for the first time. I want to say this for me, to get this off my chest. I cared about him. I cared for him. I did, I can't deny that. In January, right after the new year started, I got a phone call at 2:30 in the morning from him. He was in jail. He and 2 of his friends were arrested for public intoxication and possession of drug paraphernalia. He wanted me to bail him out. I'm a teacher living on a teacher's salary. I said no, I couldn't. This is when things fell apart. Before then, he and I had been incredibly close. We spent Christmas together. I didn't have enough money for a plane ticket home, so I stayed in the city. He came over, we cooked, watched movies. Before Christmas, we spent Thanksgiving together. I helped him study, I helped him get his finances in order. He had no idea how to do taxes and how to do all of the adult stuff, as he said. But I noticed I started doing things I didn't normally do. He would come over in the middle of the night, visibly panicked, and ask if he could stay with me. I let him, no questions asked. I stopped asking questions because I wanted to believe that he was good and everything was fine. He started asking me that if others asked about him, if I would lie and say I didn't know him. This scared me, but I assumed it was about work stuff. I wanted it to be his work stuff. He was released from jail about a week later. He didn't talk to me. I called his apartment. Nothing. I came home from work one day, and a woman was waiting outside my door. She appeared disheveled. She was wearing a tank top and flip-flops in mid-January in the Northeast. It was cold. When I tried to key into my apartment, she started verbally attacking me. She told me to stay away from him, like she owned him. She told me that she knew what I did to him, and that I would get what's coming. She left. I was scared out of my mind. Before calling the police, I decided to call his apartment one last time. He answered. I told him about the woman. He apologized, said that he was seeing her. He didn't intend for her to come over and interfere. But that led me to another question. How did she know where I live? And how many others had he told where I lived? He hesitated before answering. I remember that. He just said he was sorry. I immediately packed an overnight bag, grabbed my most valuable items, and went to stay in a hotel. I used my credit card, my only in case of emergencies card, because I no longer felt safe, because of him. I came back to my apartment the next day. Everything was fine. He came over to apologize. I told him to get out. I started crying. When I'm angry, I cry. He tried to hug me, but I remember picking up a piece of wood. I had a dismantled AITA shelf to protect myself. I demanded to know what he was doing. He told me he was selling drugs. He told me that he had to do it because he knew people that would hurt him. Lies. I guess. I don't know. I told him to get out, never want to see him again, etc., etc. He got angry, threatened to come back with his friends. I was racked with guilt for trusting him. He apologized again, said he was sorry. I was questioning everything about him. I pushed him out, locked the door. The teaching program I'm a part of rotates teachers in and out of schools across the country. Last year, I put in a request to move across the country to be closer to home. 2 weeks after this encounter with him, I found out that my request was accepted, and I was set to leave in March. My apartment was broken into and vandalized in early February. At night, he would come and knock on my door. I would call the police, but he would always leave before they got there. His guys started harassing me. Nothing was ever stolen, just broken. They broke a glass bottle my dad made for me when I was 6. He knew how much that meant to me. It was shattered. The week before I left, I saw him outside my building. I called the police. He was walking over to me, and I remember having this fiery rage in me. It was this impassioned, red, angry heat that washed over me, and I took my keys, which are on a lanyard, and I just started hitting him. I ended up cracking his eye socket. When the police questioned him, they realized he was the one that was harassing me. He was wanted for a myriad of other charges. After he fell down, after I cracked his eye socket with my keys, I started kicking him. I wanted him to die. I really did. Then I thought about what my dad would think. But then I realized, I'm not my dad. I will never be him. I'm different. This is different. People are different. Not all of them are good, but some of them are. I am good. I am a good person. Right now, I'm sitting in my new apartment in a brand new city. It's warm. Rent is cheaper. I live in a neighborhood of old people. They're nice. They love that I teach kids. It makes them feel safe, I guess. Some days I leave my front door open and let in a breeze. I'm never afraid. The beach is literally a 7-minute walk. I've timed it from my back door. I'm happy. So I'm putting this to rest. It's done. It's over. I'm tired. I'm posting this and not checking back anymore. I just wanted to tell someone because no one in my personal life even knew this was happening. I still can't believe it happened. But it did, and it's done.